Happy Friday, biology folks. This is Mrs. Ness-Deden, and today we're going to kind of put together everything that you've learned this week. Throughout this week, you've been learning about the process of protein synthesis, and you saw this picture earlier in the week. Protein synthesis is the process that takes the instructions that are encoded in a gene on a DNA molecule, a section of DNA, that information is transcribed into a molecule of messenger RNA that then leaves the nucleus and goes out to a ribosome where it's translated into a sequence of amino acids to build a protein. So this entire process from DNA to messenger RNA to the protein is called protein synthesis, and it includes both those steps of transcription and translation. If we look at this in a little more detail, this just kind of shows the whole thing within a cell. You can see transcription is happening up here in the nucleus of the cell. The DNA unzips for that section where the gene is, and the messenger RNA nucleotides come in to build that mRNA copy. And then that messenger RNA leaves the nucleus. It travels out to the ribosome, which in this picture is that kind of gray blob behind. And at the ribosome, the transfer RNAs, this is the tRNA piece, comes in and matches up its 3-letter anticodon with the 3-letter codon on the messenger RNA that codes for the correct amino acid. That's these little black dots. As it goes through. And so it reads those codons on the messenger RNA to figure out which amino acids to bring in. And those amino acids connect together to form this growing polypeptide chain. That's the protein that's being built. Today, you are going to get a chance to go through and practice and review this entire process using an interactive game. This is a really good way to learn this because it's a kind of complicated process with a lot of steps, but you get to actually go through and do it yourself and answer some questions about the process along the way. At the end of this interactive, you will need to submit your scores to your teacher. So right now, write down the email address of your biology teacher so that you have that handy when you finish this assignment. So I'm going to show you how this interactive works so that you understand what you need to do. And we'll kind of review the process of protein synthesis as you go. So when you click on the link for this interactive, it'll bring you to a page that looks like this. This game is called the Protein Synthesis Race. Though for this class, it's more important to be accurate than it is to be fast. This is going to take you through the whole process. So you'll start with a molecule of DNA. You will perform the process of transcription to make a messenger RNA. And then you will move that messenger RNA out to a ribosome and perform the process of translation to make a protein. At the beginning, you're going to click on Start a New Game, and it will walk you through the steps here. So there are some things to read. It tells you a little bit about what's happening. Transcription is copying of a gene, a section of DNA to make messenger RNA. It's the first process that must happen in order to make a protein. In order for this to happen, DNA must unzip. And so after you read that information, click the button that says, I get it, and it'll move you on to the next step. Notice the DNA has unzipped to make 2 strands. Only one is used for transcription. We will use the top strand, so you have to click on that. An enzyme called RNA polymerase is used to add new RNA nucleotides to make the messenger RNA. So you can see your RNA polymerase right here. Now it's ready to add new nucleotides. So for the first part for transcription, you can see the RNA nucleotides down at the bottom of the screen here. You have an A, U, G, and C. You are going to select which one needs to be added to that growing strand. So my first base here is a T, and I know that A pairs with T. So you're going to click on A, and then you're going to continue going all the way down the line. So after you read those instructions, you click I get it, and I'll mute the music here. We don't need to listen to that. Then you're going to continue through. So our next base is an A. And remember, we're building RNA. And so uracil is the base that's going to pair with an A. So you will just continue through selecting the correct base. A C will pair with a G. And I'm going to come back in just a minute after I finish the process of transcription here to show you the next step. I've just finished the process of transcription. It tells you transcription's done, you've made your messenger. You just kind of click through a couple more steps. It shows you how the DNA zips back up. You have to use the arrow keys to detach your messenger RNA from the DNA and then move it out of the cell. And then it shows you that the DNA zips back up, and this is the end of transcription. So now we move on to the next part. And before we go, there are a couple of questions for you to answer. So there's going to be a few quiz questions in here that you'll need to answer as you go. So you'll go through and answer these, and your scores on these will be part of your homework grade for this assignment. After you answer the questions, you'll see a screen like this. You can save your game if you want to. If you have time, you can just continue on and finish the whole thing right now and skip ahead and start the next level. So when you get to the next part, so you can see now we have made our messenger RNA within the nucleus. And the first thing you need to do is use the arrows to transport it out of the nucleus, because once transcription is done, our messenger RNA leaves the nucleus through that little pore and travels out into the cytoplasm to a ribosome. Once you're there, you click this button to do translation. This one has a couple of steps, so make sure you read carefully. It tells you a little bit about it. And then it shows you to look at it tells you to look at the messenger RNA down on the bottom of the screen. The first codon is in the P site. It's right here, AUG at the bottom. And so we click on that. And then it says to find the tRNA. You can see up at the top of the screen, we have several tRNAs that we're going to be using in this process. So it tells us to find the one with the complementary anticodon. So an A would pair with a U would pair with an A, G would pair with a C. So I'm looking for the transfer RNA with the bases U, A, C. And so it's right here. So we're going to click on that one. And now we can move that transfer RNA after you click on it. And then you have a chart up here in the upper right to help you decode these messenger RNA codons. Remember, the codon is the 3 letters on the messenger RNA. So we're going to look down here. This first codon is AUG. So if we look up here, AUG codes for the amino acid methionine, MET, which in this simulation is going to be a blue circle. So you can see we now have several transfer RNAs and a bunch of amino acids floating around in our cell. And so we're going to move the transfer RNA to pick up a methionine. You can see it just grabbed onto that blue amino acid right there. And then we can move it down into the ribosome to bond with that messenger RNA and bring in that first amino acid. Now we're going to repeat that process for each codon that goes by. So I'll do just one more here to kind of show you how this works. So the next codon in this site here says UCA. So first we have to find our transfer RNA. The U would bond with an A, C would bond with a G, A would bond with a U. So I'm looking for one that says AGU, which is this one right here. So you click on the transfer RNA. Now I can move that around. And UCA, that codon, if I look over in my chart here, UCA codes for serine, which is the red amino acid. So now I'm going to move with my arrow keys. I'm going to move my transfer RNA around, my tRNA, to pick up one of those red amino acids. And I'm going to bring it into this next spot. And you can see those 2 amino acids form that peptide bond together. And the first transfer RNA is finished with its job. It drifts back off into the cytoplasm, and my ribosome moved over 1 codon. So my next codon here is AUG. Well, that's going to match up with an anticodon of UAC. Look, I have to use the same one again. Transfer RNA molecules get reused over and over within a cell. And that codon AUG again codes for the amino acid methionine. So I'm going to use this same transfer RNA on the left to pick up a blue amino acid. Let me find one of those and bring it down here into the ribosome. So you just continue this process all the way along. I'm going to finish this up. I'll be back in 1 second when I have finished building my chain of amino acids. For now, I'm just bringing my very last transfer RNA in here, and then you can see as soon as you hit that stop codon UGA at the end, the ribosome detaches, and you have finished building your amino acid chain. There's a little more information to read through so that you understand what happens. And then there are a few more questions to answer. Again, this is part of your homework score. So look back in your notes if you don't remember these. The first one asks you to identify some different parts. So if you look in the bottom right, there's an arrow right now pointing to this chain of nucleotides. So you need to click on whether that's the mRNA, the tRNA, the ribosome, the codon, the anticodon, or the amino acid. And then there are a few multiple choice questions to answer. So go through and answer all of these questions next until you get to the final screen. And I'll come back in 1 second to show you what that looks like. Once you've answered all the questions, you will see a screen that looks like this. This is a really important part because this is how you will get your points for completing this activity. Once you have finished this, first of all, you might want to take a screenshot of this page just to prove that you did this and to save for yourself. Take a screenshot and save it to your own account somewhere, just in case anything gets lost in submitting your score. It shouldn't, but just in case, so you have a backup copy of this assignment. Then you want to click this bottom in the middle on the bottom that says submit your score online to your teacher. This is where you type in your teacher's email address. So once again, if you didn't write this down already, write down your teacher's email address, double check that you have it written down correctly so that you submit your scores to the correct place. And you'll enter your teacher's email address and then click check this email. It will tell you if it can't find that email, that means you've typed something wrong. If it says, yes, your teacher's registered, you click continue, enter your first name and your last name and your hour. And so I will just enter. And then you click here after correctly entering your name. Make sure your name's in there so that you get credit for your assignment. And then click upload this score. Please make sure that you stay on this website until you see the screen that says, congratulations, you successfully submitted your score. The cool thing about this assignment is you can use this website to practice this process as many times as you need to feel like you have a good understanding of how protein synthesis works and the steps to transcription and translation. So if you don't do well the first time, you can go back and try this again and use this as a way to review and study this process as well. Contact your teacher if you have any questions, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.